Representative Hunzeker here today. Scott is the research administrator for the Labor Market Information Department at Department of Labor here in Lincoln. He's held this position since 2019, but he's worked at the department since 2000. I'm sure all of you are probably familiar with the Department of Labor and some of its more well-known workings, such as unemployment insurance, safety, labor laws. However, there's an obscure little department within the Department of Labor that does a very big job every day. And I know this because I was fortunate enough to work in this department with Scott for a very short period when I was working in the Department of Labor. And even if you've never heard of the Department of Labor, I'm sure you've probably been privy to some of the data that it produces, which Scott's going to talk about. So Scott is the boss, oversees the production and the release of the unemployment rate, the current employment statistics, employment projections, and other data in cooperation with the Bureau of Labor Statistics. He serves on multiple state and national organizations, and they help to ensure quality labor market information and economic data for decision makers. And so we'll talk to you today about all of that.
All right. Thank you all for being in this session. We are going to go rapid fire. This probably could be an all afternoon session if we wanted it to be. So I'm going to throw a lot of information at you. We'll stop occasionally for questions and as we go. But if you have anything, make a note of it or raise your hand and I'll try to kind of adjust as we go. I want to talk about the things that you want to hear about that are important to you in this session. So
are the slides the handout?
the slides are the handouts, yeah. So, and for those of you that didn't get one, there's a few extra copies here. Vicky can maybe send them back.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I can email you copies and we'll have them on our website and I'll show you how to get to that in a minute. If you have a better use for an electronic copy. So a few disclaimers. As Vicky said, I am the research administrator in the Labor Market Information Office at the Department of Labor. So I am speaking here kind of in that role, but when I say something stupid, that's me talking, not the Department of Labor. And I say when, generally I say something dumb somewhere along the way. Also, this subject was labeled as economics. That is a huge, broad topic, so we'll get into kind of how many bills that impacted and what I found when I was looking at that. And there were a lot of bills introduced this year. So I'm going to hit on a few of them, and then I'm going to give you a bunch of others that you might want to look at. In your packet, there should be a green sheet that has a sample of some of them that we pulled, some of the topics that I thought would be of interest that are related to the labor market. I'm going to go through a few of those in detail. The other ones I'll show you how to find on the website, the legislative website, so you can look at those on your own. And I wanted to say this up front. If I don't go into detail about information about some of these bills as it ties to the labor market, please reach out to me. We're always happy to share the information we have and the data that supports these bills or the impact that they might have. So we can't always get at that in a lot of detail, but in a lot of cases we can provide something of value to help you evaluate what a bill might do. All right, so labor market information is, as Vicky said, it's basically just what it says. It's information about the labor market, state, local, national. We have as much data as we can about things like the unemployment rate, occupational wages. We do some projections of where we expect employment to be. We look at employee and employer hiring needs, and a lot of other topics that relate to the labor market. I'm going to hit on a few of those today, but our website has a lot more data that I'm not going to talk about. So again, if you want to hear about something that I don't mention, please feel free to reach out. I do want to talk a little bit about the sources of where we get our information, because that's important when we talk about the level of detail that we can sometimes provide. As it says up there, we use administrative records A lot of the things are required to be reported by employers and or workers. Some of them, there are required reports that go to the unemployment insurance office, and then we use them for statistical purposes in my office. We do a lot of voluntary surveys. We do a lot in cooperation with the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the national department. And there's a lot of statistical modeling and estimation. So a lot of times when you see something like the unemployment rate, that is not something like the Google car driving around and everybody who's unemployed stands outside and raises their hand at noon on Friday. That's a statistical model and it's estimated. So there's always room for some variability there, and I can talk a little bit about that. So let's just talk about where we're at now and kind of where we're heading. This is not showing up well on the screen. Hopefully you can see it. It is slide, I don't know, 5. These are the labor force trends. So basically right now in Nebraska, the December unemployment rate, which is the last one we released, is 2.6%. The unemployment rate is simply the percentage of people that are considered unemployed as a percentage of the total labor force. And the labor force, it's important to note, is only people that are actively working or not working but making efforts to find work. And why that's important is during the pandemic, there was a lot of dropout information going around. You know, people that stopped working for a variety of reasons, be it health concerns, childcare issues, retirements due to COVID and taking, say, an early retirement. And if you look at that, you can see the huge spike in the unemployment rate that happened March, April, May of 2020. The labor force is the chart on the right. So that's going back about 10 years or so. And you can kind of see the trend line of where that was going. It flattened out in the early 2010 or mid 2010s, started growing again, the pandemic hit, and now it's starting to kind of flatten out again. A lot of economists are predicting recession for this year. Whether that comes to be or not, it's always kind of retroactively applied. But the point I want to make here is if we had been following the trend line that we had prior to the pandemic, there should be a lot more people working. So one of the biggest issues that this state is facing right now is just a lack of people available to work. And that may mean that we need to find people from out of state, be it other countries or other states that move here, or we need to try to find ways to encourage people to get back into the labor force. As I said, it's only the people that we're counting. Yes?
Do you have any statistics on how many are coming in from outside our country?
That is not something that we track directly, but there are data sets that do show that. A lot of times that's the census that kind of shows that migration. And then once we get some estimates there, we can get some estimates of how many people are coming from other countries and what countries those are. And then we can't directly track them into the labor force. And I'll get to that in a few minutes here. And if I don't, I can cycle back to it. Non-farm jobs, so this is another data set we release every month. This is from the current employment statistics, and it shows the same trend line. If you saw kind of the growth going here, we had the pandemic. If that trend line would have kept going, we would have significantly more people in the labor market right now. So we celebrated this last year because we reached pre-pandemic levels, but the pandemic was now 2.5, almost 3 years ago. We should be celebrating hitting new plateaus and not just getting back to where we were. Yes?
What is the time, what are we starting from over here? Are these years or months?
These are years. This goes back to, I believe, 2012. And these aren't labeled specifically because I don't want to focus on any one given number and more just show what the trend line is, but great question. I want to say it's 2012 was the first year. I honestly can't read it on this screen either.
They're by quarter.
This is by month.
Yeah.
So this is monthly data. It's only showing quarters just because of the scale on the labels. All right. So if you go back to that one. This is the total trend line of all jobs in the state. Let's take a look at a couple of industries, and this is slide number 7 for those following along. These are the same trend lines for the same years. Construction is on the left. If you look at that, and again, I intentionally didn't show the labels a lot, you can't really tell where the pandemic is there. Construction has just continued along. Road construction, building construction, remodeling, pretty much everything's included in there. We've seen continued growth. Retail trade is on the right. It's plateaued several years ago. It has dropped. It is doing this weird little bounce around this last couple months. And the reason I bring this one up is the minimum wage was increased by Nebraska voters in November, took effect in January. I fully expect there's going to be a lot of people that start saying, oh, look, retail is dropping because the minimum wage was increased and these jobs are being cut. And while that may somewhat be true, that was already on a decline prior. So, the cause and effect you have to be careful of when you're looking at the data. And certainly we have some things that can kind of show where employment's headed and what the impacts look like. But this is an example where I want to kind of get the cart ahead of the horse of what actually is going on. Yes?
My theory is that Amazon and other online buyers cause some of this to happen.
There's a lot of, you're talking about out-of-state shipping, businesses cutting employees and doing self-checkouts, cutting hours, doing more with less. There's a lot that feeds into that, and I don't want to get into a lot of details on one specific industry, but I wanted to point that out, that industry had already been in decline. The minimum wage will certainly impact it, but it's not the only impact. One of the other things our office does is we produce wages by occupation. These are the top 5 occupations in Nebraska based on number of employees. So you'll see 3 of those are pretty low-paying jobs: cashiers, fast food and counter workers, and retail salespersons. The other 2 are fairly high-paying when you look at registered nurses and truck drivers, relatively speaking. And 2 of those, the registered nurses and truck drivers, are always in high demand and above average pay. The others are also in high demand just because of the number. But I'm only showing this is some of the data that we have available. So as you're looking at specific bills or wanting some information, we do have it for over 800 occupations in Nebraska at detailed levels. A lot of times when bills are written, however, because of the specificity of things, they refer to what's called the state average weekly wage. And that comes from a different data set that is based entirely on employer reports. So this is much more comprehensive. This is based on quarterly reporting required by employers. And this is showing the average weekly wage for all industries in Nebraska. The labels on this one are comparative, so it's the second quarter of each of the past 4 years. And on this one, you
The church code. Well, a lawyer. Who? Who's the lady with the pink hair?
Yeah, from the pink hair. Yeah, she had pink hair down there.
I believe we'll get started. Does anybody still need a handout?
This Ruby Delander,
Yeah,
she was
really?
and I served on Congress. This woman didn't want to work now. She was afraid to drive, but she wasn't afraid to take on anyone. I mean, it was like, that's crazy.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, I think we'll get started. So we have time for presentations, questions if you have.
Never mind, I was just.
My name is Bob Myers. I'm a member of the committee, and I'm very pleased to be able to introduce to you Dr. Mark Adler. Dr. Adler is currently in his 11th year leading Ralston Public Schools as superintendent. He's devoted more than 30 years to the success of Nebraska's public schools, serving students and families in Petersburg, Nebraska, my hometown of Elgin, Nebraska, Nebraska City, and then finally at Ralston. Mark graduated from Hastings High School in 1987 and served 6 years in the United States Army. Earned his doctorate in educational administration from the University of Nebraska in Omaha in 2008. Dr. Adler is a first-generation college student earning degrees from Kearney State College and the University of Nebraska at Kearney. He has served as an industrial technology teacher, football coach, basketball coach, bus driver, high school principal, activities director, assistant superintendent for business, and now superintendent of schools. Mark and his wife Joni have been married for 32 years, and they have 3 children. Jade, 25, is a West Point graduate and first lieutenant of the United States Army. Reed is eternally 15 years old, and Camille, 18, is a student at the University of Nebraska, Omaha. Dr. Adler has and will continue to be an advocate and a voice for all students and staff under his care. In a very diverse urban school district with high needs, Dr. Adler and his team are focused on providing an environment dedicated to achieving excellence through purposeful instruction, while nurturing a climate of hope for students and families. Dr. Adler is committed to cultivating new leaders each year through the Ralston Leadership Academy for administrators and teachers. Since the death of their son Reed in 2016, Mark and Joni have spoken to more than 50,000 people about bullying, appropriate use of technology, suicide, and spreading kindness and hope to everyone you meet. Hashtag be kind. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Dr. Mark Adler.
Thank you, Dr. Myers and Marie. I also, one of my high school teachers is here, Mr. Reimer, so now I have to make sure that I tell all the truth and stuff like that. But it's an honor to be here. Like Dr. Myers said, this is my 32nd year in education. It's my honor to serve as superintendent of Ralston Public Schools. What he didn't tell you, I don't think, is this is my last year. So I'm gonna retire after this year. Not retire forever. Have things I still need to do. I'm only going to be 55 this summer, so I still have to work and do things like that. So have insurance and stuff like that you guys know. So I hope I hit the mark on what you want to hear today. I'm going to talk about 3 or 4 different things. Try to pack a lot into here. The first part is just about me and just my journey. I think it's always important to know about that. One of the things that that I'm proud of is being a first-generation college student. So if you don't know what that means you're the first person in your family to attend college. And we serve a lot of kids at our school. I'm going to talk a little bit about me. I'm going to talk a little bit about our school. I got 10 legislative bills I'm going to talk to you about. I'm going to talk to you about what I think is a crisis in education, and that's the teacher workforce. So there's stuff in there. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And then I'm going to talk about leadership in life, and that all around the loss of our son Reed back in 2016. But I'm a first-generation college student. My dad was a plumber, and my mom was a bookkeeper. Hard-working people. We lost them both quite a few years ago, but I respect them so much. And what I would say, growing up, is we had what we needed. We didn't always have what we wanted, but it was good. And I think about with my own kids, I've been fortunate enough to work in some awesome schools. I've been fortunate enough to work hard and make a good salary. And there are still days when I wonder, how in the heck did my parents make sure I had all the stuff I needed? And then I think about our kids, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of that today. That's hope. When I say our kids, those are the kids that I serve in Ralston, across the metro area. There are 13 superintendents, 13 districts across the Omaha metropolitan area. Ralston is 7 square miles right in the middle of the city. At one point, we were the affluent school in the city. We were the ones that had the money. We were the ones that were doing great stuff. And that's kind of went to the west of our city. So now that would be Elkhorn, Bennington, even Papilla Vista, just with a lot of wealth and new houses being built and those kinds of things. But we're still there, and we're still doing good stuff. But we serve a very diverse student population. 40 different languages are represented in our student body. Over 60% of our kids come from poverty. Here's what I'm proud of our school for. 25% of the kids that come to our school choose us from other districts outside of our district. I say to our teachers, that is an indication of quality that other people are certified. Because when another parent says, I want my kid to go to your school, and they have to go through a particular process to get that student there, that's a big deal. And so we're proud of that. Like Dr. Meyer said, I'm really proud of my family. My oldest daughter, Jade, is a West Point graduate. She's currently a first lieutenant in the United States Army. And I'll appreciate a little prayer for her. She's currently on deployment to South Korea. She's been there since about October. I got to talk to her last night on the phone for about a half an hour, so that's like gold, you know. Her husband Luke, and she's a combat engineer in the Army, and so she's about third in her unit in command, doing a super good job. Her husband Luke's also a West Point grad. Interestingly enough, Luke comes from a family of 9. His dad's an immigrant from El Salvador, came to the United States and couldn't speak English. Worked in a cafe, met his wife, which is Luke's mom. They got married, they started this family, they have 9 kids. He now has earned, he can speak great English, one of the greatest guys I've ever met. Has his own HVAC company, works for the union. And so I tell Luke all the time, Luke, you can't complain about how tough you have it when your dad had to do all that. So I think that's pretty cool. Luke's a West Point grad. He's an infantry soldier, airborne, special ranges, special forces, and a ranger. So he's one of the toughest kids I know, but you would never know that because he's the nicest kid you'd ever meet. So they're all on deployment. Both of them are on deployment. My youngest daughter, Camille, goes to UNO. She's studying criminal justice. And the other night she texted me. She said, Dad, can we go out for dinner? And when your 18-year-old daughter texts you and says, can we go for dinner? You always go. And that's also a goal. And then we lost our son Reed to suicide in 2016. And I'm comfortable talking about that. I'm going to talk about that today. And I'm going to challenge all of you to make a difference in kindness, which I'm sure you will. But what's important to me is hope. And for me, at the end of the day, I believe my job is to be the CEO of Hope in our district. And hopefully wider than that, for sure, for our kids and our community, our students and our parents and our staff. Hope is you're looking forward to something better to come. So think about it. If you don't have any hope or any thoughts that something better to come is, I don't think it can get lower than that. And so we want to make sure that we're doing what we can to provide hope for our kids. I think about myself, first generation college, and the upbringing I had, but I had 2 parents that were fighting for me every single day. I don't have that for every kid in our school. I had a dad call me yesterday. He was madder than a hornet about some things. And he said, I hope you're not upset that I'm talking to you. I said, no, I'm actually happy you're talking to me, even though you're a little upset, because I got a lot of kids that don't have a dad fighting for them like you are. So that's good. That's good. We just got to make sure we channel it in the right direction. And by the end of the conversation, we had a good plan and we're moving. We're going forward. We're going to take care of his kids. He wanted to make sure we were taking care of his kids. And I said, thanks for calling. That's what we got to do. We don't hit the mark every day, but that's the goal. And if we don't hit the mark, we'll figure out how do we maybe move around and do a little bit better. So that's what we want for our kids. And that's what we're trying to replicate. We do a lot of work in our school. 2 of the biggest investments we make are in early childhood education. And so we always talk about the achievement gap. If we don't get kids started well in school, that achievement gap is going to develop early. If we don't have our kids be early readers, they're going to be sunk. Because there's a time, and my dissertation was on reading, so I know a little bit about reading. But there's a time when early on when you're young, you're learning to read, right? At a certain point, you then read to learn. If you haven't learned to read well, and then now you have to read to learn, especially in social science textbooks and stuff like that at the secondary level in high school, they're written at the 16th, 17th, 18th grade level. If you can't read that and you have to learn, why do you think we have some discipline problems once in a while? They're going to go to something they know to get attention because they're not having success with their studies. So that's all part of that. We have a 4-year-old preschool in every one of our buildings, paid for by the district. Matter of fact, registration opened on Monday and the line was out the door to make sure their kids got in there. Okay? You don't have to pay for it. We're trying to get our kids kindergarten ready. It's awesome, 4 days a week. And then Friday we do home visiting and parent education with our teachers, which is great for that. The other thing we've invested in a lot is college and career readiness. Excuse me. I want every kid that leaves our school to have hope for something better to come. And that doesn't mean four-year college. I'm going to tell you, if we're guiding every one of our kids to four-year college, that's malpractice in today's world. But if we can have a kid go to military, have a welding certificate, 2-year, 4-year, whatever that is, that's awesome. It's a huge win for me if I see our kids be able to find a job they love that can pay the bills, and that might be the first time in their family's history that they can stand on their own. That's over the top. And so that's what we want. So, kindness. I love this quote from Mark Twain. It says, kindness is the language which the deaf can hear and the blind can see. If you really unpack that, it's powerful. And that's how important kindness is. When we talk to young people, we go to schools. My wife and I once in a while go to schools and talk to young people about this. I say Mark Twain lived a little while ago. And what that means to me is kindness was cool way back then. It's cool now, and it's not going to go out of style. So that's pretty important. This is just about me, my journey. Dr. Myers kind of already told about that. The first 2 pages in there are kind of about me. The reason I put that in there is because as of July 1, I'm unemployed, so I don't have a job yet. So if you guys got somebody that's looking for somebody to work, give that to them, okay? That's part of my resume. I'm also very proud to be a United States Army veteran. So that's kind of cool in our family too. It wasn't something we told our daughter Jade, you have to do. She kind of came up with this on her own. My dad was in the Army. I was in the Army. My daughter's in the Army. I'm just proud of that lineage of service. So I'm going to brag about her just really quick. And this is how powerful it is, the things that happen in schools. And there's a lot of people talking about stuff happening in schools, about all this stuff we do that's bad, and I want you to know that's not true. But at any rate, you'll have to make your own decisions on that. I'm not going to share my political views today. I'm going to present these 10 bills we're going to talk about in an unbiased fashion. You can make your own decisions. But I want to tell you a quick story about my daughter Jade. One day at Ralston High, we had a speaker come in. I didn't have anything to do with this. It was a JAG officer, so it's a military attorney. She come home and was so fired up about that, just couldn't quit talking about it. And I think that's where it all started. Then we had some friends that their daughter went to the academy, and so we talked to Jade about that, and so she's keyed up. Next thing you know, she goes to West Point. She still always had this desire to be an attorney. So at the academy, she has a double major in language. Arabic and French is her major at the academy. So this spring, she says, I want to apply for this special program with the Army where if I get accepted, they'll pay for me to go to any law school that I can get into, and they'll pay for my salary while I go. So they'll just continue to pay her as a first lieutenant. Actually, I think she's going to be a captain here pretty shortly. She was talking to me about that last night. She got accepted. So she was able to earn, after application and put in all her information about her academic performance, one of 25 spots to do this program. Now she has herself, she's applied to 7 law schools across the country. Her number 1 is Vanderbilt. She has not been accepted there yet. So far, she has been accepted at Syracuse and Washburn. She's hoping to hear from Texas, Alabama, Washington. I'm trying to think of what other ones. But at any rate, she's going to do some good stuff. And so I'm excited. I'm happy for her that she keeps chasing her dream and whatnot. So this is our family. These are the people I've been talking about. So that's my wife Joni and I on the right. These are the kids that I've been talking about. So sometimes, life is going to deal us a curveball. And all you guys, I'm just going to talk about COVID. So I couldn't wait to go to West Point graduation. If you don't know it, every year either the superintendent or the president or the vice president are the guest speakers at graduation at West Point. They rotate. The year Jade graduated was going to be President Trump, 2020. Well, it was during COVID. They didn't have a graduation that you could attend. You got to watch online. Those two were also, that's Luke, my son-in-law, the guy I told you about, and Jade. They also were going to get married, and that didn't happen either. And so, so we watched graduation online. They had decided, since we couldn't have a church wedding because of all the COVID things and everything was going crazy, they were going to get married in the backyard of Luke's house. He lives in New Jersey, about an hour from the academy. And so we were here in Omaha, and Joni's like, we cannot not be there. So we watched graduation online. We were at a softball tournament for my daughter Camille, who now is out of school. We loaded up a plane for later that day. We had her wedding dress that we bought in a suitcase, and we flew to New Jersey, and we surprised them. And we went to the wedding that was in the backyard. My wife likes to perform weddings, so she did the wedding for her daughter, and we brought her dress that she didn't think she was going to be able to wear. So you make the best of what the situation is. So at any rate, onward. Told you a little bit about our school. Like I said, we are 7 square miles right in the middle of the city. We serve about 3,500 kids, pre-K through 12. 60% poverty, 40 different languages. The biggest, about 38% Latino, about 11% African American, white and other different races and ethnicities. We have an awesome school. We have awesome kids. I will tell you, our best kids are as good as anybody's best kids in the country. Plain and simple. We have great teachers. Some of the best teachers I've ever met are right in our schools. And I say to our teachers all the time, be a leader, lead where you are. If you are a math teacher at Ralston High, you can lead from that spot. And I want to challenge you to do that, and they do it. Some we'll talk about a little later, but there's never been a time in our country's history, in Mark Adler's opinion, that we need to stand for our kids and have great teachers, keep doing good stuff with high expectations. We have 60% of our kids that live in poverty. If we expect less out of them, they're going to continue to live in generational poverty forever. But if we expect a lot, maybe those can be the kids that get that first job that they love, that they want to go to, that they can now make a salary around there, and have a great situation for their family. Okay, if you turn in your booklet, there should be a few pages in there. It should look like this: 10 legislative bills to watch. I'm going to go over these quick, and we'll kind of go from there. I think I'm doing pretty good on time, and I'll be happy to answer questions too. So if you have a question or two, I'll be happy to answer those here in a little while. First one I'm going to talk about is LB 800. LB 800 is sponsored by Senator Mervin in the Education Committee. The subject is change provisions related to Superintendent Pay Transparency Act and provide a limit for superintendent and educational service unit administrator compensation. So basically, this is a shot at superintendents from our government about some of you guys make too much money. And here's what I want you to know. The job is tough. I'm not going to stand up here and talk to you about we deserve more or anything like that. Mark Adler's opinion. This is one I'll probably give a little bit of opinion on. You get what you pay for, okay? So if you limit stuff, you may get exactly what you want, and maybe that isn't the best leader that you want for your district. Here's the other thing I'm going to highlight a little bit. Our budget's about $55 million. So I'm responsible for a business that is taking care of $55 million worth of stuff. We employ 550 employees. And here's the other thing. The parents send the best they have to us every day. That's pretty important work, right? And so, in my opinion, you want to have a good leader. And I'm not saying money is everything, but I'm going to tell you, if you start paying, limiting what the superintendent can make, that's going to limit the people that are going to apply for jobs. And here's a newsflash for you. Not everybody wants some of these jobs because there's some folks out there that make our job difficult. And so yes.
When you consider what a superintendent of schools get paid versus
So a small business that's gonna be a few million.
What was the question?
Oh, great question. Okay, I'm sorry. The question was, or it was more of a statement if you were looking at it from the business perspective and you were paying a CEO of a business that was running a $50 million business, $220,000, they wouldn't stand for that. I mean, those people make a lot of money, a lot more than $220,000. So that was the association there, and absolutely correct. So at any rate, the other thing, and this is a little something if you want to do something on your spare time, we already have the Superintendent Pay Transparency Act. So that's already in place. What they're trying to do is just limit how much a superintendent can make. So basically, and I don't remember what the multiplier was, but what they're going to do is they're going to take the total compensation of a teacher, is it 5? Beginning teacher, and the superintendent can only make 5 times what that total compensation of a teacher is. And that's probably not far off. I mean, it's probably kind of in the zone. So we're not talking about, incredible reductions and stuff like that. But it's just the fact that in Nebraska, one of the things we really work hard on is local control. We put a lot of responsibility on our Board of Educations to speak for the people they represent. And this takes away another one of their options. And that's not awesome. Right now, you can go to any school district website in Nebraska. If you want to know what their superintendent makes, they must post it on their website. So if you go there, you might have to dig down a few pages. Probably going to be somewhere in the Board of Education page. At our school, I've got my own page. It's in administration. You can click on me. You can click on stuff about me, and documents are right there. My contract is there. So everything that I have allowable to me is right there. My contract posted on the website. And another thing called Schedule D, which outlines my salary and any benefit. So like I get a cell phone reimbursement every month. That's on there. Any mileage, anything is a compensation item has to be listed on that Schedule D, and that's there for public to look at. You can look at any school in Nebraska right now. So moving on, LB 583. I'm gonna put these into 3 categories. I'm gonna lump the next 3 together. So we have a new governor, Governor Pillen. He's made a commitment that he's gonna invest in education, which I think is great. Some of the stuff is, so I'm going to talk from my school's perspective. Some of this stuff is great for our school, some of this stuff is not. So LB 583 is introduced by Senator Sanders. She's from Bellevue Education Committee. Provide foundation aid and special education supplemental aid under the Tax Equity and Educational Opportunity Support Act. That act is called TIOSA. We call that TIOSA in school world. That basically is the funding formula for schools for the state of Nebraska. The foundation aid part is the part I don't like. It provides $1,500 for every student in Nebraska in a public school, which sounds great, okay? But we are a school where our local resources don't generate enough money to take care of what we need for our kids. And that's all done by a formula. This stuff is very complicated. I'm going to try to explain it, hopefully the way you can understand it. So then our local resources don't meet what we need for our kids. So then that's when state aid from the state kicks in and that fills in the gap, right? So for us, and the total levy you can have in Nebraska for general fund is $1.05. So you cannot go over $1.05. So what we're doing is we're taxing our taxpayers at $1.05, plus we're getting money from the state to fill that gap to make sure we have enough to take care of our kids. That's how it works. Some schools, and normally these are rural schools, they have so much land and they have fewer kids that their local resources, their taxes that they collect are more than enough to take care of their kids. And so their levies could be 50 cents, 70 cents, 80 cents, okay? That's a lot less than what our people in Ralston are paid. But that $1,500 is gonna go to them. So basically, they're gonna get $1,500 per every student they have in the district, which is gonna allow them to lower their levy. And where I have a problem with that is, my folks in my district aren't gonna get the levy lowered. Because there's also a thing in there, that $1,500 is considered an accountable receipt, which goes towards our local revenue, which then so we're gonna get it, right? But then the way it works in the formula, that's gonna reduce what the state has to pay us. So it's gonna be $1,500 in and $1,500 out on the other side for us. It's gonna be a wash. But a small school who isn't equalized, who doesn't get that extra to fill in the gap, they're gonna be able to use that $1,500 and do whatever they want with it. Most likely they'll probably lower their levy even more. So now instead of having a 50-cent levy, they might have a 45-cent levy. That's not great for us. I don't like that. It's not equitable to our people. But every superintendent's gonna stand in front of here and tell you a different story, because if they're the ones that are getting that extra funding, they're gonna fight for it, because they are hired to support their school. So, you know, it is what it is. That's where our legislators have a lot of tough decisions to make, because everybody, you know, is wanting a little extra.
So
Well, yes,
it
yes, ma'am.
sounds like it's pitting rural against urban.
It's been that way for a long time. Yeah, and we all get along, don't get me wrong, but it's definitely a different, rural and urban, and that's what's so difficult about Nebraska, is you have, different systems across, you know, education systems across Nebraska that just, require different thoughts, you know, different approaches. You know, my first teaching job was Petersburg, Nebraska. We had 120 kids K through 12. I mean, that was one of the best places I ever taught. But here's what I'll tell you. Great teaching and learning looks the same in Petersburg as it does in Elgin, where we have 3,500 kids. So that's important to know, that the things we're working on are no less important no matter where you're at. And so I think we all get that. But rural and urban, their funding components look different, and it does make them clash once in a while. It's not awesome. Now, what's good about this is special education. 80%, what they want to do is they want to take special ed reimbursement up to 80%. Right now, we're at about 49%, 47%. It's supposed to be at 80%. What happens is the state runs out of money, they ratchet that down so they can fit it into their budget. I mean, it's just like at home. If you don't have enough to cover what you want, then what do you got to do? Cut something out. So special ed has been reduced a long ways. Now, that would not be counted as a local accountable receipt, which would help us. And I love that, because that's going to be quite a few million for us if we do that. So that's center standards. That's bill number 1 in the governor's package. Bill number 2 in the governor's package is LB 589, introduced by Senator Breezy in front of the Revenue Committee. The biggest thing about this is Senator Breezy is concerned that schools are spending too much. And so what this bill does, it puts a 3% cap on your ability to raise your budget, or raise what you spend from one year to the next, okay? That's not great. Now, the board with supermajority can override that. In our school, we can override it up to 5%, okay? I'm gonna give you a couple things here. I hope I'm not carrying on too long. Last year, so we have teachers that need to be paid, right? About 80% of our budget is personnel. Our teachers, our base salary, I think, is about 38.7, maybe something like that right now. I'd have to go back and look exactly, but around that area. We need to give our teachers a good raise. Last year, we gave our classified employees a $2 raise across the board, every single one of them. And what I worry about is, and I was telling Dr. Myers before this, I still don't know that they got more money in their paycheck because of inflation. You know, so our lowest paid workers, we gave a $2 raise, which was a very big increase, you know, percentage-wise. But at the end of the day, I don't know if they have more money to buy gas to put in their car because of inflation and how our world is going. We're going to try to do another $1 this year. But when you do that, teacher salaries, increase in classified employees, of course, our gas prices are going up, electric's going up, we still have to keep the building open, we still have to keep moving. It's more than 3%. So how are we going to balance all that? And and what I worry about is some of my peers, so Elkhorn, Bennington, Papillion, they're building houses out there faster than you can blink of your eye. And their valuation is going up 10, 12, 14%. And they can only access 3. How in the world are they going to open these new buildings? It's just, it's over the top. So this is not a good bill, but it has good things in it, right? But that part's not great. The third part of the governor's package is a couple more pages in, LB 681. It's Senator Clements, it's under appropriations. This also has foundation aid in it. It also has increased special ed, and the biggest thing it does is it creates the Education Future Fund. It's, the state is gonna come in $1 billion from their cash reserve to create this Education Future Fund. Kinda like, I think we have a highway fund that we put money into and stuff like this. This is gonna create an Education Future Fund. That's awesome. It also says that we're going to put $250 million a year into this fund to keep it going, and that's gonna help fund some of these extra things like foundation aid that they're talking about for schools. That's all great. What people like me worry about, skeptics, is right now we're flush with money down in Lincoln, here in Lincoln. That may not happen forever. And so what happens is when you're not flush with money, they have to start cutting back. And do you think they're gonna cut back in $1 billion? You better believe they are. What they do is they go into the state aid formula, they make a couple tweaks, and everybody gets a little less, which is, that'd be fair, right? But our costs are still increasing. I just worry, and so the political part of the school leader is, it's hard to say no. It's hard to say no to more money, but we see a train wreck coming down the road. That's what we worry about a little bit. And our legislators are smart people. They know this too. I hope they're thinking a little bit further on, what comes next type of thing. All right, keep buzzing through here. The next one is LB 753. LB 753 is Senator Linehan, revenue. It creates the Opportunity Scholarship Act and provides tax credits. It has 30 co-sponsors, and basically what this is going to do is it's going to allow people to take tax credits for corporate or personal, and then that money can be set to a fund that can help pay for private school tuition, Catholic school, private school, things like this.
Is that only for their child?
No, any child. I think it goes into a fund and then you can access it. So not just for their child. The other thing is, it's dollar for dollar tax credit, which is not normal in a lot of places. I don't think your church contribution is dollar for dollar, but this one is. And so that makes it a little unfair. Here's the other thing you need to know. In my opinion, Nebraska has never supported any type of charter, voucher, credits like this. We've never had it. And the reason we've never had it is, what they'll say is it's only 25 million, but then the next year it can grow to 50, and it keep on going. And at the end of the day, just like I talked about with the Education Future Fund, it's dollars going someplace else. And when you get to the end of the line, and you need more dollars, but you don't have them, something's going to get cut. And I got a pretty good feeling where it's going to go. And here's what I also want you to know: we have a parochial school in our district, St. Gerald's Elementary. That principal is one of my best friends. We work on stuff together all the time. I am a big advocate for private school, Catholic school, but their mission is a little different than ours, but their kids are still important. We work together. So, but here again, I still think it's a personal choice. You're getting some of my personal opinions here. I gotta keep on moving. Okay, LB 374. Yes, ma'am.
So there's a movie that if you haven't seen it, I would highly recommend you view it, and it's called Backpack Full of Cash. And it talks about exactly that thing around the country and the charter schools and how we're taking that away from public education. So I think you can download it on the web, but it's Backpack Full of Cash. And every child comes with a backpack, basically.
What was the name of the movie?
It's Backpack Full of Cash.
I have one question on that bill also. Would the private schools would not be held to the same standards as the public schools, isn't that true?
They get tax money.
You got it. So I was going to bring that up too, and I'm glad you brought it up. The rules aren't the same either.
Oh,
They don't have
gosh.
to take all the kids.
Right.
They don't have to take all the kids.
Can kick 'em out.
Their accountability is different than ours. They would tell you they don't, but So,
once they recruit, students for Jesus.
yeah. So here again, I don't want to get too deep into the political side of it because I do believe in private parochial education as a choice for a parent. And I'm going to tell you, we have some great private schools in Omaha, but still, I think we got to keep that separation, in my opinion. But they're not following the same rules. They don't have to accept whoever. They would tell you that that's not true. And I think most of folks, I don't think.
So there are things in there about not being available or eligible for certain safety net programs like unemployment insurance if you were under the influence of cannabis. So there are some things within those bills, even though that's not the intent, that you might want to look at. Pet insurance would be new. Obviously, we have an insurance agency, but this would create sort of a formal pet insurance umbrella. So that's something new that we don't have. So there's also manufacturing, healthcare, childcare, you name it. There's some bills. Yes?
Would it require people to have pet insurance?
It would not. It just regulates it, defines terms. It because right now pet insurance exists. You can get it, but I don't want to say it's unregulated. I don't know the extent of it. So there's a lot of, stuff. Okay. So a couple reminders, and you've got these in your slides, but basically, legislators, despite their best interests, don't always think about what they're saying and what the consequences are going to be and how things are written and if we can actually measure things and all these other factors. So if you come to me and say, hey, I want information about pet insurance, I can find out how many insurers there are in the state and what they pay and all kinds of details about that. But I can't drill down to the point of say, well, here's how many direct insurance companies currently offer pet insurance and what the premiums are. Like there are places where I could maybe help you find that, but certain details just don't exist. And sometimes legislation is written that way on purpose because they really don't want anyone to track. I honestly encourage you to speak up. If you see a bill and it's very vague and you're going, well, how do we know if this is good for the state? Yell really loud because there's, data, again, is pretty neutral. And if it's written well and they really know that it's going to establish something, we should be able to tell that as citizens. So I encourage you to kind of take a look at that and figure out how it works and everything like that. Okay. Oh, that didn't work. That's weird. Okay, I'm going to leave this up for just a second. So for those of you who have your fancy little phones or on your packet, we put out a monthly newsletter. The QR code will get you to the subscription page for how you can do it. It has a lot of interesting articles about our labor market. It has the data that we publish, has contact information for our analysts and all kinds of other stuff. We just put out a new issue of this yesterday. So it's hot off the press. If you do sign up, this will take you to the sign up page and then it'll shoot you an email that you have to apply or have to verify because it goes to our listserv, so it's all kind of an automated process. But that'll get you there so you can scan that from your printout if you got one. Or if you just want to call and harass me directly, I encourage you to do that. My information is up there. I'm happy to take your calls or emails and address any bill, not just the ones I highlighted, but anything else that you see that we might have information on that I can help with. That's what I'm there for. Our services, unless you ask for something incredibly crazy, are free and available, and we'll get back to you quickly. So I encourage you to use our agency, use our office. As Vicki said, we're kind of this hidden gem for a lot of businesses and citizens, and we are happy to help any way we can, and I apologize if I went over a few minutes.
Goodbye.